5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Administrator Jackson, thank you for taking the time to appear before us today. I'm not aware that we've really had an opportunity to speak with you before. In my district of southeastern Pennsylvania, a big issue related to energy relates to refineries. I have some 7,000 jobs that are tied to the 2 refineries in my district, which is a good thing because, according to your own report, the number of U.S. refineries has declined by almost half since the 1980s here in the United States, and employment in the refining segments declined by 13% in the last decade. Now, most of those refining opportunities have actually moved over to places like India and China and Nigeria, where they're building new refining capacity. In fact, the refineries, as you point to health, and I think that's an appropriate concern, are facing huge regulatory challenges. One of my refineries has spent 20% of its total value in regulatory compliance. It's a $5 billion capitalized company. It spent $1.3 billion on compliance just in the last recent history. And I understand the health, but at what point in time does, while health is an issue with respect to people, at what point in time do the welfare of fish start to take precedence over the creation of jobs? Within one of my refineries, there is now a regulation called clean water, cooling water intake structures under 316B, in which this one refinery is now being asked to put in a cooling tower at the cost of $350 million, the effect of which will be so that they can return the water back to the Delaware River at a 2% or 2-degree warmer temperature or cooler temperature, because apparently the fish are thrown off by the warmer water of 2 degrees. The impact of that $350 million additional cost may well put that refinery that employs close to 2,000 people in my district on the line at a point in time where jobs are at stake and at risk of going overseas. Would you please tell me specifically, how does the EPA decide whether the loss or creation of jobs directly as a result of a regulation should be part of a thorough economic analysis?
Sir, thank you. I'd just like to point out that while the number of refineries has declined, refining capacity in this country has actually increased. So we have fewer refineries refining more and more product.
But those jobs, capacity here, but those jobs are going overseas. So tell that to the people in my district.
My point, sir, is that there is as much oil running through refineries or more than 20 years ago. So what is actually happening is that technologically they are becoming less employee intensive and yet able to process more oil, and that is not as a result of EPA regulations.
Those are at refineries in the Gulf Coast. I'm aware of that. I have refineries that have been operating for 50 years that are struggling to continue to compete. And most of the struggle comes at virtue of the regulations. And I'm not arguing with regard to, I'm not making that point here today because most of it relates to health. I'm talking about the welfare of fish.
Well, sir, let me speak to that issue directly. We recently proposed a rule, it hasn't been final, on intake structures, not only for refineries but for power plants. That rule relies heavily on the states. The states are delegated authorities for implementation of the majority of Clean Water Act permits. So although I don't know the specifics of the permit that's been proffered by the state of Pennsylvania. You're saying this is a state thing. The state of Pennsylvania is responsible for this? Sir, I will double check those facts. But my belief is that having run a state program, states proffer proposed permits based on their analysis of requirements. And I would offer this as well. It is not simply the welfare of fish, as you put it, but the ecosystem health that the Clean Water Act intends to restore. And so
where does the ecosystem of the health of the 7,000 jobs in my district come into play? I asked you a specific question, whether the loss or creation of jobs directly as a result of regulation is part of a thorough economic analysis. I need a specific answer because just on May 4th, your Deputy Assistant, Matthew Stanislaus, specifically said, we do not take a look at jobs. So I want to know the answer. Do you directly take a look at jobs?
We have done it, sir, although we have not done it in every example. And let me explain a little bit about that. We do an economic analysis. It is mandated by law. We also do it in compliance with executive orders issued by the President Clinton that have survived through 3 administrations. Because of the times we're in, we have leaned heavily into jobs analysis around the rules that have been proposed under the Obama administration.
The gentleman's time has expired. We now go to Mr. Yarmuth, if he's ready for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, Administrator Jackson and Deputy Secretary.